All right, let's dive right into this epic explainer. We're cracking open the pages of a true classic today to see exactly how a son's coming-of-age journey parallels a grand cosmic chess game. We'll be exploring the opening books of Homer's Odyssey. It's this incredibly ancient story, but it reminds us that sometimes our personal survival is tied to massive forces way, way beyond our control. It really is just as much about the universe aligning as it is about mortal endurance.
Listen to how instantly this sets the literary tone. Quote, "Tell me, O Muse, of that ingenious hero who traveled far and wide." By invoking the Muse right off the bat, the narrator is basically asking for divine help to unpack this dense, incredible masterpiece. From the very first line, we are reminded that, in this world, mortal lives and divine will are completely, inextricably intertwined. So here is our roadmap for today. First up, the Council of Gods. Then, trouble in Ithaca. Next, the hero's sun journeys, followed by Tales of the Sea, and finally, the fate of Ulysses.
Okay, Section 1, the Council of Gods, or as I like to think of it, the divine plan. We begin our story looking way down from the heavens, where a crucial decision is about to set the entire universe into motion. And honestly, there's a massive conflict of interest happening among the immortals. On one side, you have the goddess Minerva actively advocating for the hero. She pities Ulysses, who is trapped far away on the island of the nymph Calypso. But on the flip side, the sea god Neptune is actively blocking his return. Why? Well, because Ulysses blinded his son, Polyphemus the Cyclops. Ultimately, though, the king of the gods, Jove, steps in and decrees that Ulysses absolutely must return home. It just goes to show how the feat of one single man requires a literal act of Congress on Mount Olympus to resolve.
Moving on to Section 2, Trouble in Ithaca, aka Unwanted Houseguests. Down on the ground, the chaos happening in Ulysses' home while he's been missing all these years is a brilliant illustration of the epic's moral framework. On one hand, we have Telemachus, Ulysses' son. He's powerless in his own house right now, but he remains incredibly hospitable, welcoming a disguised Minerva into his home, offering her food, and giving her a comfortable seat away from the noise. Contrasted directly with him are the villainous suitors. Think of them as the absolute worst possible roommates imaginable. These guys are aggressively pursuing Ulysses' wife, Penelope. They're slaughtering Telemachus' oxen, chugging his wine, and openly plotting to carve up his entire estate. It is a stark comparison. Respect for the ancient rules of hospitality versus total reckless greed. But hey, don't count the family out just yet, because Penelope proves to be an absolute mastermind. As the text says, at night she would unpick the stitches again by torchlight. She actually fooled these terrible houseguests for 3 whole years by claiming she just couldn't marry until she finished weaving a burial shroud for her father-in-law, Laertes. She'd weave by day and then secretly unravel it by night. She held an entire mob of aggressive suitors at bay with pure intellect, at least until she was unfortunately betrayed by one of her own maids. Which brings us to Section 3, the hero's sun journeys. It's time for stepping out of the shadow. Encouraged by Minerva, who comes to him disguised as his father's old friend Mentor, Telemachus finally decides he can't just sit around feeling stuck anymore. He has to take bold action. He starts with a secret departure from Ithaca, literally sailing out under the cover of night. Next, he arrives in Pylos, meeting the wife King Nestor. And finally, his journey takes him overland to Sparta to meet Menelaus and the famous Helen. He is traveling across land and sea, doing whatever it takes to seek news of his father from the great surviving heroes of the Trojan War. When Telemachus reaches Pylos, Nestor recounts the intense sorrows of the war. But listen closely, because there is a very specific lesson embedded in Nestor's stories. He brings up Agamemnon's tragic death at the hands of a treacherous usurper, and then he highly praises Agamemnon's son, Orestes, for avenging his father's murder. The crucial point here? Nestor is subtly pressuring the young man. By telling him about the harsh realities of the post-war world, he's psychologically challenging Telemachus to step up and protect his own father's legacy, exactly like Orestes did. All right, Section 4, Tales of the Sea. This is where we meet Menelaus and the shapeshifter. So, Telemachus arrives in Sparta, and things take a deeply magical, honestly slightly bizarre turn. The memories of the Trojan War are bringing everyone to tears, right? Even Telemachus. To ease the pain of these overwhelming memories, Helen literally drugs their drinks. She slips in a magical herb she got from Egypt, an herb so powerful it banishes all sorrow and prevents a person from shedding a tear, even if their own parents were to drop dead right in front of them. Talk about a coping mechanism. But this supernatural intervention perfectly sets the stage for Menelaus to explain how he learned of Ulysses' fate while he was stranded in Egypt. I absolutely love this next part. It is basically a mythological survival guide. Menelaus recounts how a sea goddess taught him to ambush Proteus, the immortal old man of the sea. Step 1. He and his men had to hide under foul-smelling, freshly skinned seal skins, and the stench was so utterly rancid they had to shove fragrant ambrosia under their noses just to block it out without gagging. Step 2. Wait for Proteus to count to seals and fall asleep. Step 3. Jump out and hold on tight. Proteus tried to escape by transforming into a lion, a dragon, a leopard, a wild boar, and even a tree and running water before he finally gave in. Once captured, Proteus spills the secrets. He summarizes the pretty grim fates of the other Greek leaders: Ajax, drowned by Neptune because of his own arrogant boasting, and Agamemnon, who made it home only to be ambushed and murdered. But most importantly for Telemachus, Proteus confirms the status of Ulysses. He is alive. But he's imprisoned on an island by the nymph Calypso, with absolutely no ship and no crew to take him home. It's incredibly bittersweet. He's alive, but completely trapped. But as our focus shifts back to the present day on Ithaca, a terrifying new question pops up. Will Telemachus even survive his journey home? A massive new threat is putting our young hero's life in immediate jeopardy. See, the suitors back home finally realize that Telemachus is growing up and becoming a real threat to their plans. So what do? They arm 20 men, load up a ship, and sail out to set a deadly ambush at the rocky islet of Asteris. Their goal is to murder the young prince at sea. When Penelope finds out that her son has secretly left and that armed men are waiting to kill him, she is thrown into an absolute agony of despair. It gets so bad that the goddess Minerva actually has to send a phantom dream in the shape of Penelope's sister just to comfort her as she weeps. Which leads us directly into Section 5, the fate of Ulysses. The universe aligns. With Telemachus sailing straight into a deadly trap, the narrative snaps back up to the heavens, where the gods are finally putting their grand plan into motion. Jove dispatches his messenger, Mercury. Mercury binds on his glittering golden sandals, grabs his magic wand, and swoops down over the waves like a cormorant fishing in the sea. It is this fantastic moment of pure divine intervention. He flies all the way to Calypso's island to deliver Jove's absolute decree. Release the prisoner immediately. But getting off the island? That is only the beginning of the struggle. The decree clearly states, quote, "After a perilous voyage of 20 days upon a raft, he is to reach fertile Scheria." The gods declare that Ulysses gets no easy, magical convoy. The divine plan requires him to build his own raft and survive the brutal ocean entirely alone for 20 days before he can even find passage back to Ithaca. The gods might be opening the door, but Ulysses is the one who has to walk through the fire. And that leaves us with one seriously terrifying thought. Even if Ulysses somehow survives the wrath of the sea god Neptune, even if he makes it all the way back to the shores of Ithaca, how in the world is one single exhausted man supposed to defeat an entire army of armed suitors waiting in his own home, intent on murdering his only son? That incredible tension is exactly what makes this text a timeless masterpiece, and it absolutely leaves you desperate to dive into the rest of the epic to see how the puzzle pieces finally fall into place.